In episode 5, Silpha is still pointing her sword at Pazuzu, who has already fallen. Meanwhile, Lloyd and Grimm are engrossed in their magic experiment, hiding behind a barrel. Silpha suggests that Pazuzu should just surrender, but Pazuzu instead smiles and releases some kind of smoke that makes anyone who inhales it weak. The soldiers, Albert and Silpha, fall to the ground after inhaling the smoke. Now, it is Pazuzu who can stand tall, and he spreads the 4 wings on his back. With all his might, he strikes the helpless Silpha, sending her flying towards the lake. Albert sees this and desperately wants to help Silpha, but he cannot move his body. Pazuzu flies into the air and heads towards Silpha, saying that anyone who inhales the smoke will become his. This is the miasma of domination. Even in her powerless state, Silpha mocks Pazuzu, saying that the smoke he produces smells very foul. Pazuzu, enraged, launches an attack on Silpha, but fortunately, Tao intercepts the blow. Tao still appears fit and able to stand tall. Pazuzu remarks that even monsters wouldn't last 30 seconds after inhaling his miasma. Moving incredibly fast, Pazuzu suddenly appears behind Tao, curious as to why Tao seems unaffected by his miasma. Swiftly, Tao kicks Pazuzu, but Pazuzu dodges. Now, Pazuzu captures Tao's leg with his tail, then strikes her and lifts her into the air. Pazuzu then analyzes that Tao can use an unusual breathing technique to withstand his miasma of domination. In her desperate state, Tao seizes an opportunity to attack Pazuzu when he is off guard. She unleashes the Thunderquake Pulse, throwing Pazuzu to the ground. Tao then tries to catch her breath again, but suddenly, a monster grabs her from behind. Tao struggles to keep the monster's large mouth from swallowing her. Pazuzu approaches and releases his miasma, inviting Tao to join him. But of course, Tao is unaffected by it. Due to her extreme exhaustion, Tao cannot resist the strength of the monster's mouth and is swallowed whole, ending up in the monster's stomach. Pazuzu's attention now shifts to Silpha, considering her a suitable replacement for his deceased minion. Pazuzu lifts Silpha with his tail and releases his miasma again. Not far from there, Lloyd sees this and remarks that this must be how Pazuzu conquers the bearwolves. Pazuzu confirms this, explaining that he first kills the mother of the bearwolves, then influences the young ones with his miasma, making them see him as their parent. Lloyd considers this to be very cruel. In great surprise, Pazuzu suddenly realized why Lloyd could move freely and wasn't affected at all by his miasma. He asked Lloyd about it, but Lloyd was also puzzled. Pazuzu was even more shocked when he saw Grimm. He knew Grimm was a demon, yet he was cooperating with humans. Pazuzu laughed at him because Grimm looked so cute. Grimm was actually very angry at this mockery, but he held back. He wanted to give Pazuzu some advice as a fellow demon, but Grimm decided to just watch Pazuzu suffer. Ignoring Grimm's words, Pazuzu ordered his monster minions to attack Lloyd and Grimm. Lloyd, who had been learning about mana transmutation magic, was eager to practice it now. Lloyd cast his spell, and instantly, the area in front of him transformed into a field of flowers. The monsters became tame towards Lloyd. Surrounded by the large monsters, Lloyd lovingly petted them. He successfully took control of the monsters from Pazuzu. Lloyd then commanded the monster that had swallowed Tao to spit her out. Tao emerged from the monster's mouth unconscious but appeared to be fine. Seeing all this, Pazuzu was astonished and acknowledged that Lloyd was a great magician. Pazuzu released his miasma towards the monsters again, hoping they would obey him once more. But it was useless. The monsters had regained their memories of how Pazuzu enslaved them and killed their mother. With full speed, the monsters attacked Pazuzu simultaneously. However, their strength was no match for Pazuzu, who easily deflected their attacks and counterattacked. Pazuzu was now furious with Lloyd for destroying his ambitions. Pazuzu believed he would win because magical attacks wouldn't affect demons. This only made Lloyd more curious about why demons couldn't be killed by magic. Lloyd got serious and prepared to attack Pazuzu, releasing his magical power. Pazuzu was stunned by the magnitude of Lloyd's magic. Now, Pazuzu understood why his miasma didn't affect Lloyd. It was because Lloyd's immense magical power left no room for the miasma to enter. Pazuzu became very frightened by such a vast amount of magical energy. Suddenly, a barrier spell appeared near Pazuzu, but he managed to dodge it. Pazuzu was confused about why Lloyd wasn't attacking with offensive magic, but instead using barrier magic. Pazuzu finally realized that Lloyd was trying to trap him within the barrier to capture him. Pazuzu fled at full speed. Lloyd continuously cast barrier spells in Pazuzu's direction. Pazuzu dodged them with all his might. However, with Lloyd's incredible speed at casting spells, Pazuzu eventually got caught in one of the barriers Lloyd created. Pazuzu tried to escape from the barrier, knowing he would become a test subject, but his efforts were in vain. Lloyd saw that Pazuzu had made the Bearwolves his test subjects, so he thought Pazuzu shouldn't complain. Lloyd then began chanting his spell at full speed. Panicking, Pazuzu could only fly around inside the barrier. He tried to persuade Lloyd to stop his attack, but it was all in vain. Pazuzu said he had never been hit by such a high-level spell before and that it might kill him. Ignoring him, Lloyd continued chanting his spell. He planned to attack with 4 high-level magic techniques in 100 consecutive rounds. Lloyd could cast 240 spells in 1 minute and intended to continue for the next 30 minutes. The continuous barrage of magic struck Pazuzu, leaving him helpless and resigned to his fate. As the sun rose, Lloyd stopped his magic attack and checked on Pazuzu. Lloyd thought Pazuzu was dead. Inside the barrier, Pazuzu lay motionless, having turned gray. Lloyd remarked that he did it in less than 5 minutes. Grimm then commented that magic does affect demons, similar to how sound and light affect humans. But if continuously subjected to such high levels, the result would be like Pazuzu now. Albert and the soldiers began to regain consciousness, and Lloyd panicked, running towards them. Grimm approached Pazuzu and said that no one cared about the bitterness he had gone through and that it would be more enjoyable to live without feeling burdened. Pazuzu started crumbling into dust and gradually disappearing. Before fully disappearing, Pazuzu entrusted his ambitions to Grimm. Grimm accepted this and absorbed Pazuzu, who had turned to dust, into his mouth. Grimm slightly recovered thanks to Pazuzu's magical power. Meanwhile, Lloyd lied to Albert and the others, saying that it was a great wizard named Robert who defeated Pazuzu. Hearing this, Tao became excited and looked around for him. The next day at the palace, Albert and Lloyd met with the king. The king greatly appreciated Albert for defeating both the monster and the demon. The king also heard about Robert and Tao helping Albert, but Albert said that Robert had suddenly disappeared and Tao had gone to look for Robert, so they hadn't had a chance to thank him. Albert then said that the most credit actually went to Lloyd, as Lloyd had made weapons imbued with magic for them, allowing them to defeat the monster easily. In front of the king, Albert suggested that Lloyd should also be a candidate to inherit the throne. Even though he was still young, it was not a problem. Hearing this suggestion, the king appreciated it and offered Lloyd the opportunity to compete for the throne. However, with an innocent look, Lloyd declined the offer. After that, Lloyd was seen happily playing with one of the Bearwolves. It turned out that one Bearwolf had followed him back to the kingdom, even though the other Bearwolves were still in the forest. This Bearwolf seemed very tame and obedient to Lloyd. Silpha approached them, and Lloyd introduced his Bearwolf, which he had now named Shiro. Lloyd told Silpha that there were many things he wanted to teach Shiro, but he was unsure how to communicate them. While Lloyd and Silpha were chatting, Grimm, hiding in the Bearwolf's fur, wondered why Lloyd so easily rejected the throne. But seeing Lloyd, it was clear he was only interested in magic techniques. From the top of the palace, the king and Albert watched Lloyd talking in the garden. The king remarked that Lloyd was a very humble child. Albert suggested that perhaps Lloyd was indeed the one most suited to become the next king of the kingdom.